Starting us off at number 10, the Manila Film Center. Originally built to host the 1982 Manila International Film Festival, this center quickly became an infamous haunted location after a terrifying accident that occurred on November 17, 1981. At the time of construction, the film center had a very strict and short deadline, so the crew was working overtime to finish up the center as quickly as possible. That was until at 3 a.m. the fateful morning, which might I just add is also coincidentally the devil's hour, which is certainly a spooky coincidence. And all of a sudden, the scaffolding on one of the upper floors collapsed, crushing the crew below. Apparently, some of the workers were impaled by the falling steel and others were trapped by the quick-dry cement. But the most evil part is that allegedly Imelda Marcos, who was the first lady and woman heading the project, refused to allow for rescuing of the corpses from inside the building as she didn't want to delay the project any further. Because of this, it's believed the workers' spirits remained as their bodies were buried inside the cement, haunting the building for revenge on their lives. Those that visit today say they can feel a strange presence as soon as they walk through the front door, and then it doesn't take long before the sounds of the wailing workers who were buried alive can be heard coming through the walls. Next up at number 9, General Moncado White House. Said to be one of the oldest houses in the Davao region, it was once the home of mystic and political activist Hilario Moncado, founder of the Filipino Crusaders World Army in the 1940s, and then later in 1946 he ran for president, which pushed the Philippines to be granted Dominion status. Now, back in the day, many of his followers, called Moncadistas, resided in this house. However, nowadays it's regarded as one of the most mysterious and haunted buildings across the Philippines. Investigators often report seeing tons of unnerving things like evil-looking orbs of light and inexplicable sounds at all hours of the day. However, the real fright is said to come from a gaunt lady in white that can be seen late at night, as well as a man in balls and chains who roams around the compound, terrifying all that bear witness to him. So whatever you decide to do, just be careful. You never know what other kinds of horrors could be hiding inside. Coming in at number 8, Manggit Cave. Named as such due to the high accumulation of guano, which are bat droppings, the first unsettling thing about this cave is said to be the overwhelming smell as soon as you step foot inside. Which, I know, that's not necessarily scary or haunted, but it's also not a very appealing start to this adventure. However, all that being said, if you do decide to venture in, a guide is required to help navigate the complex winding formations. But don't get too comfortable yet, as the guano is the least of your worries. Legend has it that fruit bats aren't the only inhabitants of this spooky cave, and that blood-sucking vampiric creatures lie in the depths and could attack at any moment, which frankly sounds like one of the worst outcomes I could think of. Now, to be fair, this is more of a folklore tale, but still, I'm not really looking to risk my chances in a dark cave that's potentially infested by vampires. I mean, I've seen The Descent, I'm not looking to make that my reality. Coming in at number 7, the old enchanted Balete tree. Located on the island of Siquijor, this mystical tree is estimated to be around 500 years old, and considering how long it's been around, it's no surprise that it's rumored to be one of the most enchanted trees in the world. In Filipino culture, it is believed that all Balete trees are inhabited by mystical beings and other supernatural creatures. However, this one in particular is said to be home to creatures like Duende and Encanto, who, trust me, you really don't want to mess around with. In fact, locals often warn tourists to be extra mindful when visiting the tree, otherwise the spirits inside could become angered, and from there you're in a whole world of trouble. The Duende are said to cause disease that no modern medicine can cure, while Encantos are rumored to inflict deadly disease, mental illness, or even gain complete possession of their human target. All of which sounds like the last thing I want to experience on my holiday. So unless you're looking to potentially get mixed up with some angry spirits, then I would think twice before visiting this historic site. Next up at number 6, Malinta Tunnel. tunnel. If I've learned anything from horror movies, it's that mysterious and dark tunnels are sure to be filled with creepy ghosts, and the Melinta Tunnel is no different. During World War II, this now historic tunnel was initially used as a bomb-proof headquarters for the US Army. However, it later morphed into a medical unit housing about 1,000 hospital beds for injured soldiers. Now, sadly, many of these soldiers died while being treated here, and it's now believed that they roam around the tunnel haunting the grounds for eternity. Said to be one of the most eerie places on the entire island, those who've dared to see for themselves have reported seeing strange shadows, unidentifiable noises, and sudden shifts in temperature that send a chill down their spine. However, the real scare comes from the sounds of the injured soldiers screaming out in pain that can be heard echoing through the dark at all hours of the day. Coming in at number 5, Laperal House. Built in 1920, the historic Laperal House is said to be one of the most haunted buildings in all of Baguio City. Once the home of the Laperal family, at the height of World War II, terror in the form of Imperial Japanese soldiers overtook the house, taking out the family along with it. It's said during this time, as a garrison, many soldiers and civilians alike were tortured and killed, and many believe that every last one stays haunting its halls today. However, it's not only ghosts from the war that are said to haunt its halls, but a few of the residents who lived there afterwards too. Among them is a girl who is said to have been run over by a car, and her nanny who stares out the window mourning the loss of the little one. Since then, the estate has served a few purposes, most famously as a museum, while nowadays it apparently serves as a restaurant. However, make no mistake, you are sure to see haunted figures roaming around, whether it's the slightly less terrifying young girl and nanny, or the sound of the blood-curdling screams of torture victims, the Laperal House is one terrifying location. Coming in at number 4, Balete Drive. In Quezon City, there is an avenue named after the row of trees that used to line it. Although they are now gone, as I previously mentioned, in Filipino culture it is believed Balete trees are inhabited by mystical beings and other supernatural creatures. And despite their removal from the area, it's rumored to remain just as haunted as the day they were planted. There are a few variations of the legend, but the most popular is that there once was a woman who died after being hit by a taxi along the Balete-lined road late at night, and whoever hit her was never caught. Since then, it's said that she haunts the roads, scaring unsuspecting drivers who dare trespass alone. Some say she might even appear to be lost and wait for a taxi to pull over so she can come inside and terrify the driver by revealing her true form, a corpse covered in blood and bruises. However, others say sometimes she'll just disappear out of thin air. The tale has terrified many, including a police officer and captain of the QCPD who was eventually suspended for cowardice after he refused to patrol the area after a rise in incidents. Allegedly, each accident claimed that a woman in white was what had caused the issue, and so the officer refused. So, all I am saying is, don't say I didn't warn you. Coming in at number 3, Bahay Napula. A little less than 2 hours outside of Manila is the incredibly terrifying Bahay Napula. The red house, as it translates to, got its name from the striking blood red hue that exudes it. And while that might not be enough to make it a creepy haunted house, the story that comes with it definitely is. Once upon a time, this house was occupied by Japanese garrison during World War II. But not only that, it also became a very popular site for torturing Filipinos suspected to be a part of the revolution. So, needless to say, these walls have seen some dark stuff. And if that weren't enough, hundreds of Filipino women were also brought here to serve as comfort women to the Japanese soldiers, which, if you have not heard about the atrocities committed to comfort women, they were essentially young women forced into slavery for these soldiers' pleasure. With all of that history of torture, it's no wonder that this house is said to be riddled with angry spirits, and some even say that the reason for the color of the house is due to the amount of blood that was spilled inside. Those brave enough to visit have reported hearing the wailing cries of women, screams of pain, and the constant unnerving feeling that they're being watched. So whatever you do, just be careful if you decide to step foot in the Bahay Napula. Coming in at number 2, the Diplomat Hotel. Hotels are a cornerstone for paranormal activity, and while this one might not be up and running for business, that doesn't mean it's any less less haunted. First built in 1913 as the retreat house for the church, it later became a refuge for soldiers during World War II. Now, like many of the haunted places on this list, the Diplomat Hotel also witnessed many atrocities at the hand of the Japanese Imperial Army, who invaded and took over the building, torturing the previous residents, and according to visitors, the paranormal activity is unmatched. Its reputation as a haunted building began in 1973 when the property was purchased by entrepreneur Antonio Agapito Agapoa, who was responsible for turning the war-torn building into a sophisticated and beautiful hotel. However, despite its outward beauty, staff and guests alike quickly realized its dark past remained inside, and would routinely report seeing headless apparitions roaming through the halls or hearing strange and eerie sounds at night. However, the tales were short-lived, as by 1987 Antonio died, and with that the hotel ceased operations and was left abandoned. But make no mistake, while nowadays the abandoned and deteriorating building might not host guests, according to those that have visited, it has no shortage of paranormal activity, with terrifying accounts of people seeing headless apparitions at night, screams, cries, banging on doors, along with countless other strange noises. It is definitely one of the most haunted locations you can find. And last up in our number 1 spot is Mount San Cristobal. Put aside the fact that Mount San Cristobal is a dormant volcano, which is nerve-wracking enough to begin with, it's also been nicknamed the Devil's Mountain due to a series of terrifying folklore tales, which honestly tells you everything you need to know. Legend has it that Mount San Cristobal is home to countless malevolent spirits, as well as an evil creature that locals call the Tumau, which is apparently very similar to a Sasquatch. Some of the haunting tales include the strange disappearances of mountaineers, while the most terrifying claim that the evil spirits that reside within will create false paths, causing the hikers to lose their way so that they could either possess them into falling to their death or use them as human sacrifice. All of which sound like something straight out of a horror movie, so enter at your own risk, cause you just might never return.
Starting off this countdown, we have Dawson Mine. On October 22nd, 1913, an explosion occurred in the Dawson Mine, New Mexico. Sadly, around 263 miners were killed. But that wasn't the end of it. Tragedy continued to strike the mines and the workers. On February 8th, 1923, another explosion occurred. 123 miners were killed in this explosion. Nowadays, this place has a reputation of being terribly haunted. Visitors have seen lights flickering on and off. The lights apparently look like ones on a mining helmet. And they have heard whispers and voices, or have even seen ghostly figures vanish right before their own eyes. To this day, one of the things that still remains in Dawson is a pile of white crosses, representing all the lives that were lost there. In our 9th spot, we have Seaham Coal Mine. In 1880, an underground explosion in this mine caused 160 people to lose their lives, including people in and around the mines, and some of the rescuers. The cause of this accident is still unknown. It wasn't just the miners or nearby workers affected though. A woman dropped dead after hearing news that her brother died. Some other individuals took their own lives because they couldn't handle the tragedy. As a result, a number of places became haunted. Not just the mine, but the homes of the people who died in the tragedy as well. In our 8th spot, we have Morpha Coal Mine. In 1890, this mine saw one of the worst mining disasters in Wales. An explosion caused 89 people to lose their lives. But this wasn't the first time that tragedy had struck the area. In 1858, a series of explosions killed 4 men. In 1863, 40 men lost their lives, and in 1870, 29 people lost their lives. Hence why this mine is now considered cursed. In fact, it's been given the name the Pit of Ghosts. This is because there's a legend from the UK that says any spirit of anyone killed in a pit will hover around that spot forever. Since these disasters, a number of unexplainable events have happened in the mine. In fact, men refused to work down there because they kept seeing and hearing strange lights. Apparently, the ghosts would make their presence known by knocking on the walls and wailing loudly. Coming in at number 7, we have Oaks Mining Pit. In 1866, a series of explosions ripped through the mine for 2 days. As a result, 361 men died in this this mine. Of course, after so, people were terrified to go back into the mine, not because of what happened, but because it was now haunted. In fact, the UK Paranormal X team investigated the mine and said that it was filled with negative energy and even demonic activity. Further investigation led them to discover that the land itself was cursed. If the land is cursed, well, that means anything on the land is also cursed as well. Moving on to number 6, we have San Manuel Magma Copper Mine. Now, this is said to be one of the largest underground copper mines in the world, but it's also one of the most haunted mines in the world. So, located in San Manuel, Arizona, this mine is haunted by ghost miners. One famous ghost that people often see is called White Boots. They gave him the name because the spirit is always seen wearing a pair of white boots. Other people down there have experienced unexplained lights and sounds. However, this mine was closed in 2003. Since then, White Boots has apparently terrorized other mines all over the world. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Sterling Hill Mine. Located in New Jersey, this mine opened in 1897 by the New Jersey Zinc Company, and it was in operation until 1986. However, during its 90 years of operation, the mine saw nearly 80 deaths. Although this mine is closed, it still holds the reputation of being undeniably haunted. A number of people have heard footsteps, voices, and whispers coming through the mine. In fact, some have even seen shadowy figures or faces while down there exploring. According to local legend, one of the spirits is a former miner named Bicycle Pete. Basically, legend goes that after the mine closed in 1986, miner Pete continued to ride his bike around town and near the mine. One day, he never returned home. He went missing. Eventually, his bicycle was recovered, but Pete was never seen again. Now it's said that his soul haunts the mine. Apparently, if someone yells "Bicycle Pete" down into the mine, taunting him, Pete might just pull them in and they'll suffer the same fate that he did. In our 4th spot, we have Platteville Haunted Mine. Located in Wisconsin, Platteville Mine opened in 1845. And ever since it did, it's been plagued with tragedy, from miners perishing down there to people who went down there to take their own lives. In fact, to this day, the miners can still be seen haunting the mines. Not only that, but a man hung himself in the mine, and he has been seen a number of times appearing in an apparition form, with the rope still dangling from his neck. Nowadays, if you really want to explore the mine, you can. Around Halloween, the town offers haunted mine tours. You can even ride the 1931 mine train down into the mines to see what it was like for the miners. In our 3rd spot, we have the Great Western Coal Mine. On April 11th of 1893, a nasty fire occurred in the coal mine. Sadly, this led to the deaths of 63 men and boys. A total of 200 were reported as trapped, but only 150 were rescued. By April 14th, 53 bodies had been recovered. The rest they couldn't find. Basically, what happened was a haulage engine set fire and nearby drop sheets caught on fire. Then the fire spread with ease. It ignited the timber supports before filling the mine with smoke and fumes. After this tragedy, people reported the mine being haunted. Some say if you're down there too long, you'll start to feel heat and smell smoke. Some have even seen apparitions of the miners burning to death in the fire. In our 2nd spot today, we have Kennecott Mine. Located in Alaska, Kennecott was a city once filled with millions of dollars worth of copper ore. So when copper ore was first discovered on the land, workers set out to create a mine and track system, but this led to tons of deaths. During the construction of the mine, tons of individuals lost their lives. The death toll continued to increase when the mine opened. A number of miners lost their lives to cave-ins and unsafe working conditions, and that's when the hauntings started. Miners got so scared that they didn't want to continue working. They reported hearing cries for help from the dead miners. Sometimes the ghosts would even taunt them and move their tools from them. Nowadays, the mines are abandoned and the town is now considered a ghost town. Quite literally too. And In our number 1 spot today, we have Levack Mine. Over the years, this mine has terrified a number of people. It all started back in the 1970s. It was a normal weekend and 3 people were working there. This included the single hoistman, an operating shaft boss, and a fire guard. Everything was going well until the fire guard decided to descend into the mine at night. That's when the operating shaft boss got a panic call from him telling him that he had seen things and that he needed to get out of there. When he finally got to the fire guard, he was a mess, panicking like crazy. Apparently, he had seen someone down there, but he knew that was impossible for someone else to be down there. He knew that what he saw was a ghost. Ever since then, the mine has had a reputation for being haunted. A number of other people have also seen ghosts down there as well.
Number 10. Nakagasuku Hotel. In 1975, a World Fair was planned to be held on the island of Okinawa, commemorating the American return of the island to Japan 3 years prior. Located on the Motobu Peninsula, this was a high-profile event to be sure, and one businessman from the capital of Naha saw a great opportunity for profit. The businessman chose to build the hotel with an excellent view of the Pacific Ocean and East Chinese Sea, and, however, construction was immediately hindered by warnings from monks that the land they were building on was supposedly the home to a great deal of sacred locations and burial grounds. These warnings were ignored, but as accidents during construction began to increase, progress was halted as the workers began to fear that the build itself was cursed. In an attempt to encourage the workers to return to their jobs, the businessman made a show of living on the premises until the project was finished. 3 nights later, the man lost his mind and disappear. Do you think that you could stay for more than 3 days? It's pretty beautiful, so long as you don't mind the angry ghosts and demons. Number 10. The Lizzie Borden House. A bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious homes. The Lizzie Borden House gets its reputation from the unsolved murder of Lizzie Borden in 1892. She's one of the most infamous true crime figures, known for killing her father and stepmother with a hatchet. There's a twisted rhyme about this incident, but I'm not gonna sing it here. I'm not getting cursed on YouTube. So on August 4th, 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 years was struck 19 times while her father, Andrew, was hit 11. Although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds every night for its nightly tour of the premises. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where these horrors took place, is requested the most for paranormal overnighters. Some 1408 stuff. Would you do this? Who does this? And it's not like you can just, enjoy a lovely all-inclusive breakfast, but there's also the nightly house ghost tour, the ghost hunt, and all of that, which attracts fans of horrors every night of the year. Number 8. The Chu Mansion. When Chu Jinshan and Chu Weiqing moved to Shanghai, they did what anyone would do with a suddenly gained fortune. Built a big old house smack dab in the middle of Shanghai and threw a bunch of animals inside. And not just any old animals, they kept tigers,